Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We've been born out of conquering a world. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful, and we're beautiful, and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. But you must stop bowing to those who want to make you a victim. You must become the victor. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, then you are an enemy of the New World Order and Satanism. They want us shut down because we have the Spirit. I'm jacked into the source. I know the secret, and I want to see you empowered. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say something at the beginning of this video before we get into the main topic. What I want to say is this. I want to show my appreciation and my gratitude to Asmongold. Yeah. Most people in his position would not do what he's doing. And what I mean by that is, take a look at somebody like Moist Critical. I'm very critical of Moist Critical. I've made multiple videos illustrating why I think that he's not the person that people make him out to be, and why he will never, ever have the courage to do what Asmongold is doing. Most of these streamers don't. Most of these streamers are fake, they're phony, they're disingenuous, they put themselves first. They don't have an ounce of the character that Asmongold does have. Now, I'm not glazing Asmongold. That's not what this is. I'm acknowledging somebody that's doing something that's actually unique. In his position, being one of the biggest streamers in the world, it would be very easy to take the Moist Critical route. It would be very easy to take the Hassan route. It'd be very easy to take the Pokimane route. It'd be very easy to take the Ludwig route and pretend to be fake friends and come out with this leftist, brain-dead, retarded, regressive nonsense. It'd be very easy to do that, and he didn't. Now, what I will say is this. I think that channels like mine, well before Asmongold came into this conversation, we helped to pave the road. So, we were some of the first ones there, clearing the brush, getting the rocks out of the way, getting the rubble, and paving the road. Asmongold, seeing that there's a road, came in like a super weapon, like a battering ram. And it was smooth sailing right up to their fortifications of these gaming press elites, these narcissistic game developers, and Asmongold, in one fell swoop, just battered down their defenses that they had put up for years. And it was so completely satisfying to see. Because a channel like mine, I can talk about this stuff all day, every day for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Asmongold does one video, and it makes such a ripple within any industry. And all you have to do is just sit back and watch the meltdown begin. It is amazing. And that's why I want to take a moment to show my appreciation. Oh, there are substantive disagreements that I have with Asmongold. I think a lot of them, actually. He gave Avowed a 7 out of 10. And don't worry, I'm not going to get too much into that, but his audience was roasting him for that for like 30 to 45 minutes, which I thought was one of the funniest things. It was hilarious. He gave, Dragon Age the Veilguard a 6 out of 10, which I also think was really funny because that game was a 2 out of 10. And Avowed, from everything that I've seen, is a 2 out of 10 game. I mean, these games are utter trash. But I like the fact that he's willing to say what he feels. And so if he thinks it's a 7 out of 10, for him, it's a 7 out of 10, no matter how bad it is. It's true we have guilty pleasures, and stuff like that. And if he feels that it's higher, then it's fine. But I so much appreciate what he's doing. Because it'd be so easy not to do it. It'd be so easy to ignore this stuff and just pretend that it didn't exist, like a lot of these other content creators. And so I wanted to point that out. I have disagreements with Asmongold on a whole number of things, but I appreciate him and I respect the work he's doing because it is a big deal. This video, this dude's got the guts to call us wrong. So we have a BioWare veteran in quotations calls out the cruelty of fans celebrating layoffs. You are crossing a line and you're probably attacking the wrong person anyway. No, I don't think that that's true. I don't think that we're attacking the wrong person. I think we're attacking precisely the right people. I think what's happened is that a lot of these companies that once had stellar, quality, passionate people, I think a lot of them have been bought up by bigger companies like EA. I think they've been gutted. I think a lot of the staff, a lot of the people working there are leftist hacks and freaks and degenerates. I think they are filled with activists, people that are obsessed with their own perception of what's right and wrong, their own brand of, moral altruism, which is basically just sitting on their ass and doing nothing, but complaining and trying to morally grandstand to other people, trying to self-aggrandize themselves and trying to put other people down to make themselves feel better about their worthless, meaningless, empty lives. These people are mentally ill freaks that think that they should be able to dictate the actions and behaviors of other people, which is shocking, considering the fact that there's nothing in any way redeemable about what they're doing. It's all just completely devoid of any real principle or substance. And so, celebrating the layoffs, gamers don't like to see people lose their job. They don't. In normal times, in normal circumstances, they don't want to see people lose their jobs. Unless those people are evil and they're a malignant cancer on an industry that they love, then they'll be far more accepting of those sort of layoffs and losses. But for the most part, no, I wouldn't say that gamers are in favor of layoffs. I'd say it's entirely subjective. What we see here from BioWare is a de-evolution in gaming. I don't think there's a single person. I don't think Asmongold believes this. I don't think anyone in his audience believes this. I don't think that there's anyone who believes that BioWare is capable of making a good game anymore. I don't think there's anyone in Asmongold's audience. There may be a couple, but very, very few. That is, how do I want to phrase this? Maybe excited isn't the right word, but optimistic about Mass Effect 5. I would be curious if Asmon asked his audience if excited is not the right word, because they could be excited for the possibility, but if you ask them, do you believe that Mass Effect 5 is going to be a good game based on current BioWare? I'm pretty sure the answer, almost unanimously, it'd probably be in the 75%, maybe 25% percentile. A majority of them would say no. I'm not envisioning this game to be good based on what BioWare has done over the last couple years. In fact, the past decade or more. So I don't think that gamers have got the wrong person. I don't think that gamers are just needlessly cruel. I think that these freaks have put it upon themselves to be the moral arbiters of what's good and what's right, what can be said, what can't be said, how women should be portrayed in games. And I think that for the most part, gamers have rejected that in its entirety. And I think that what we have here is very simply gamers acknowledging a problem and then being pleased when they see these same people get laid off, because to them, it's working towards the solution to the problem, which is if you get these freaks out, maybe, just maybe, they'll replace them with people who are actually good at what they do. It's a long shot, but that's the hope.
BioWare calls out the cruelty of fans celebrating layoffs. You are crossing a line, and you're probably attacking the wrong person anyway. Uh-oh. So we're getting called out by the gaming industry. Uh-oh, here it is. Here it is. Let's take a look at it. You don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're mad at. Mark Dara is a true BioWare veteran, returning to his consultancy before returning in a consultancy role to shepherd Dragon Age the Veilguard over the finish line. So let me get this straight. This guy is the person who's telling us that we're wrong for thinking that it's good that shitty studios are getting shut down.
True.
While he recently was a consultant for Dragon Age the Veilguard, that they had to, because keep in mind, in an investor's earning call, you legally have to tell the truth. They had to say the game really sucked a big dick, right? And it sucked a mega dick, not a big dick, a mega dick. Okay, he's wearing an Anthem t-shirt. You know what? You know what, guys? Hey, I'm not so bad, huh? How about that? You know, oh yeah, I liked Avowed more than a lot of other people did. Oh, you know, everybody but this is outrageous.
He mentioned it. Everyone. I think Asmon should be able to give whatever game he wants, whatever score he wants, because I think it's genuinely funny. His audience. Oh my God. When he was at 7 out of 10. Oh my God. And the thing that really amuses me are the people in the gaming press that are so bitter and jealous of Asmongold and content creators. They think that Asmon, they think that his opinion is what sets the standard for his audience. That's what. So Asmon says it's a 7 out of 10. So then his audience is naturally just going to believe everything he said. No, he said 7 out of 10, and they spend probably 30 minutes just roasting the shit out of it. It was absolutely hysterical. Man, they did not let him live that down. That was probably one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. I mean, he even mentions it in this, like, and this other thing. He got roasted so hard for giving that a 7 out of 10. Every time they would show, like, a juxtaposition between Oblivion, because you watched the Oblivion versus Avowed video like I did. And every time they'd show something, people would be like, 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10, huh? No, what they don't understand is that these audiences are brutal. It's not that Asmongold puts his will on them. No, they're in the audience to hear what Asmongold has to say, but he's not going to convince them. He's not going to convince them of something that isn't true. So, for example, if he says that the Veilguard is a 6 out of 10, which is, he can give the game a 10 out of 10. It's his opinion. The game is a 2 out of 10. The game is garbage. Dog shit. The game is an abomination unto the Lord. It is shocking how bad that game is. That game is so bad that it slapped the taste of the love of Dragon Age out of the mouth of its most ardent fans. When Angry Joe, of all people, who was like one of the most diehard Dragon Age Origin fans, when he says that he doesn't want another game, that he's afraid of what you might do to it, that tells you right there that is just, that game was bad on another level. But I think it's hilarious how much these people, they think that content creators mold impressionable minds, and it's just not true. People are more than happy to call Asmongold out for being wrong.
Aegis. Like, I look like a fucking wizard. I look like a patrician fucking, historian of video games compared to this. This is crazy. The shirt's cool. It is a cool shirt, but it's the wrong shirt. Okay? Yeah, this is nuts. During his latest video, however, the subject, a more toxic element. Where is it here? Dara's latest video. Where's his video? Where's his fucking video? The video is called $70 Doesn't Buy You Cruelty. Okay, let's see if we can find this. Stop harassing developers. Where's he saying it? This should be obvious.
Oh, God.
Did you read the title? Did it say something like your $70?
Why does he remind me of David Jaff? Like, it's that old, weird
Doesn't buy you
look.
Cruelty? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. The fact that you bought a game that you didn't like doesn't give you the right to be cruel or unkind to the people that developed that game. Now, I'm going to be clear
I'm not sure which eye to look at.
about something. I'm not saying that you have to like the thing you bought. I'm not saying even that you aren't allowed to complain about the thing you bought.
Oh, but you have to complain about it in the way that I find to be acceptable. You have to complain about it in the way that I find to be reasonable. My response to that is no. No, I will excoriate the game. I will call out the people that work at BioWare that have made it their activistic cause to shit on gamers, to call them out, to be anti-Trump deranged leftist retards. I will call them out for that every single time and twice on Sunday. And the reality is, the game isn't $70 anymore, by the way. The game has been out for a couple months. The game is like $20. So, and it's still too much money.
You can have whatever opinion that you feel like.
Apparently,
Yeah, see, this is what these people say. David Jaff said something similar in a video with Asmongold. He says, oh, you can have whatever opinion you want. And then it's followed up by saying, well, but you shouldn't have this opinion. And this is wrong, and this is why you're wrong, and this is why you're bad.
apparently
towards
not.
a game. Even if that opinion is stupid and wrong, you are entitled
Apparently
to that opinion.
not.
And to some degree, you're entitled to express that opinion to the corporation, to the video game studio that created this game that you bought.
But
you paid 70 of your own dollars for this game, and it disappointed you.
Yeah.
And you're angry about that. That is fine. You
A majority of people didn't pay $70 for this game. Majority of people didn't pay anything for this game. Majority of people didn't play this game. That's the problem. Well, one of the problems.
You are entitled to be angry about it.
Thank you.
And you're
Thank you.
entitled to
Thank you.
express that anger in
Well, I'm glad he agrees. Yeah, I totally agree with him. Absolutely.
Oh, did
Yeah,
he,
said
did he
abuse
cut
from
him off?
players. So in Dara's latest video, here's another subject. The more
There was a big butt coming. I knew it. Asmon, you cut him off. Oh, is he going to go back?
toxic elements of video game fandom, which are much more of an issue of developers than players might think. In a 2023 GDC survey of game developers, 91% of respondents said abuse from players was a problem. And if we're being honest, we've seen people go way over the top at developers online. Well, here's the thing, though. And this is, dude, Mark Curran is right about this. Tell that to the devs who are posting anti-white hatred, attacks on gamers, and death threats to MAGA.
True.
That's the problem. Is it takes two to tango here. Is you have these developers that are constantly demonizing video players, and these people don't get fired. They post extremist political opinions fucking
True.
constantly. And they demonize the players. They talk down to the players. They're
True.
patronizing. And then you're surprised that the players say, hey, you know what? We don't like this. Is this a fucking joke? What do you mean? They
Yeah.
can't handle the truth. Yes, I know. It's nuts. How
Yeah,
is
no,
this
he's
even
absolutely right.
possible? So PC Gamer, $70 doesn't buy you cruelty. Makes it clear he's not talking about folks criticizing a game they paid for
Yeah.
it.
And by the way, this freak will have nothing to say about the extremist rhetoric from his peers. It doesn't bother him at all. Anti-Trump content, Trump deranged, kill MAGA, all that stuff. Not a word. Not a word. Nothing to say. Only I'm going to try to shame the customer for having a voice. And the thing is, I think the gamers, all things considered, given the abuse from these freaks, these disgusting freaks, I think gamers have been actually very, very, very reasonable in their responses. Given the rhetoric and the vitriol and the anti-white racism and the degeneracy and the freakery from these subhuman abominations, I think people have been actually very, very reasonable. Very reasonable. And I think the gamers are very good at matching the energy that's put out there. If you've got positive vibes, if you've got a company that's running in a healthy way, I think that people match and respond to that. I do. But I think that it is an audacious statement to try to point out any of the issues with gamers or your customers when you've got community managers, you've got art directors, you've got developers themselves, you got consultants like Mike or Mark Darrow, whatever the hell his name is. You've got so many people that are behaving in the most disgusting, despicable, unconscionable way. And I think it is absolutely egregious to look at them and say, well, you're okay for all the vile racist stuff that you do, but gamers, your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty. My $70, first of all, I'm not going to buy any of your games. Even if I were to pirate your game, which wouldn't be worth the time. That $70, you're right. You're right. That $70 doesn't entitle me to be cruel. What does entitle me to be cruel is when you've got some game developer, some jumped up, smug, degenerate, leftist piece of garbage who's saying something like, we should kill MAGA, or kill your local MAGA. Well, like something like that that's been on full display. Oh, I think that opens up a whole other can of worms. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous to try to put it on gamers as though they're the ones that fall for this. I think that's absurd.
Right. Dara's issue is about fans having the right to target random developers who work at the studio at a given title, even when you don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're getting mad at. I'm sure that to some degree this is true, but when you see a developer or somebody that works at a company post something that's fucking racist, and then you say, hey, this guy's a piece of shit, is this really what the problem is? Is this really a problem? What are we talking about here? You cross the line when you start being cruel about it. You don't need to go out of your way to cause harm to other people because of a video game. Obviously, nobody's... No, what do you mean? Who's supporting this? Nobody's supporting harming somebody. This isn't it. Yeah, all these guys aren't allowed to have your own opinions. It's like these things don't like. It's specifically to point out that you're being angry at a specific person. You're attacking a specific person is often misdirected. So, yes, in some cases, this is true. But what about the cases where it's somebody who works at a company? See, this is where I'm at, okay? And this is me being logical. So if I think about this and I think to myself, oh, okay. So what the problem is here is that the people that are working at the company might not all deserve the same treatment that this person does. Here's what the problem is. It's that person doesn't get fired. That person doesn't get fired. There's nothing that happens about it at all.
Right.
That's it. That's the issue. It's the director. Yeah, it's the director making personal statements like this. Yeah, it's insane. Why should we as consumers care about their circumstances?
Certain channels.
Yeah.
If you are mad at that Ubisoft game, be mad at Ubisoft. express your anger to Ubisoft or to the studio that made the game.
Yeah.
But you cross a line when you start being cruel about it.
What does this mean?
So why am I saying you don't get to be cruel because you spent $70? Let's walk through it. 1, you shouldn't be cruel at all. What are you doing? It's a video game. You don't need to go out of your way to cause harm to other people because of a video game that you don't like.
I don't like this word harm because it's like you're talking about harm like these are internet comments. I don't think anybody's supporting actual violence or threats. Nobody's really supporting this. Somebody thinks this. There are some people that think this. They're crazy.
I'm not saying you're not allowed to be angry about it. I'm not saying you don't get to express your dissatisfaction with the content of the.
You notice how dishonest the framing of this is? I'm listening to this guy, and I don't like him. I don't like his politics. I think he's pathetic. But I'm actually trying to give him... I'm actually trying to listen to what he's saying and give him a reasonable benefit of the doubt. But what he's focusing on is the game. The game. You don't like the game, well, you can criticize that, but you go too far when you're cruel. This guy wants to address your behavior, but has not, in the intro, once criticized the people in the gaming industry. The toxic, disgusting, vile, vicious community managers, who are also racist. The art director for Avowed coming out with racist statements. These are highly toxic, highly deranged, highly mentally ill, leftist retards that are going out there and making vile and vicious statements, no repercussion, no accountability. In fact, oftentimes they're reinforced. Oftentimes, not only are those people not fired, but the company comes out to make a statement that, we stand behind these people. But this guy has not a word to say on any of that. Not a word to say on the bad behavior of these companies and the people within it. It's only you that needs to change. See, this guy doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that the real harm, the real radical rhetoric, the real content is coming from them. It's coming from his side of the fence. He doesn't want to admit that. He doesn't want to even acknowledge it. These community managers are disgusting. Almost universally. These art directors and senior developers and these people are gross. And they're sick. And they're mentally ill. And they're just freaks. And so it becomes about something more than just the game being bad. It becomes about something else altogether. And this is what the guy is too afraid to talk about.
Game that you're not enjoying. But when you climb into someone's personal social media and start actively attacking that person.
Well, what happens if that person's saying something you don't like? Are you not allowed to criticize people for saying things on social media and public spaces that you disagree with? What is this?
You celebrate layoffs at a studio because the game that you don't like didn't do that well.
No, completely wrong. Well, not entirely wrong. It's part of it. Usually, people don't really care all that much. It's like if a game is bad and people are laid off, they're like, oh, whatever. It's sort of like, it really depends. It depends on how nasty, how vicious, how toxic, how left-wing the people are and how they've treated the audience and how they treated the game. Like, if there's a game that's good and the audience learns that the game studio was shut down and everyone was super cool, they would be very much against those layoffs. And I think that actually happened. I think there was a game semi-recently, within the last couple of years, I think there was a game that came out and actually was like that, where the game was good, people liked it, but it didn't technically sell well enough, so they just simply, let the team go, and gamers were not happy about that.
That's good. That's good, because that means that there's not going to be more games like that, and it sets an example for the industry that these types of games are bad. Why would that be a bad thing? That's a good thing. That's like, yes, you want to have situations where products that you don't like fail because it shows the market that other people don't want it. Mm-hmm. And that's not even a personal attack. It's not being cruel. That's saying, hey, your product, I didn't like your product, and big surprise, I'm glad that it's not working out for you. We're at 2:11. Give me a minute. I'm going to get it over to here. Well, tell that to them.
But if you're not buying that, cruel. And fundamentally, you should have more grace for other human beings.
Well, tell that to them.
But if you're not buying that, let's go on to...
And also, it's not grace. I mean, if somebody makes a shitty product and they get fired, that's not, this isn't graceful. What is this?
Point 2.
Yeah.
You don't know what caused the results that you don't like.
Who cares? Who cares?
Go through an example. Let's say that you don't like the line delivery on a piece of dialogue. Is that the fault of the voice actor? It might be, but it could be a lot of other things too. It might be the fault of the person who was directing that voice.
Well, if a line delivery is bad, very, very, very rarely do people blame the voice actor. Most of the time, the people will blame the writer because the dialogue is so shockingly bad. They'll blame the writer because ultimately the writer is the one that wrote the dialogue. Very rarely do people go after the voice actor unless that voice actor comes out and says something obnoxiously stupid. Like what we saw with localizers for anime, where they were all disgusting left-wing feminist hags and degenerates and retards. In those cases, yeah, people held the voice actor accountable, but for the most part, people say, oh, the writing's bad. If the voice acting is really bad and the lip flaps don't add up, people will say, well, oh, look at this low quality piece of, media. They'll say, oh, look, this game isn't very good. But very rarely do people go after the voice actor or voice actress.
Maybe they were given very specific instructions to deliver the line in this particular way.
He brings up a good point in this circumstance, and I think that this is accurate. That there are some cases where voice actors do something because they were told to do it in a certain way.
Right.
This point that he's bringing up is accurate. I agree with him in this.
Maybe the writer who wrote that line wanted it delivered in this particular way, and the stage direction specified this particular line delivery. Maybe the recording equipment at the voice studio went down, and the only take they managed to get was this first one that was done just to set the tone, and they were just kind of...
There is no other industry that when something goes wrong with a product, the people that work in the industry constantly try to make these emotional appeals in order to get people to accept a subpar experience.
Right.
This doesn't happen in movies. It doesn't happen in restaurants. It doesn't happen in an airplane. It's like this never happens anywhere. Why is this unique with video games?
Because these people
Yeah,
are
it only
snowflakes.
happens with video. This is outrageous.
Yeah.
Out of time and stuck with it. So if you go and you start attacking the voice actor for a line delivery you don't like, it might not be them at all. It might be
He's right about this. This is true. But I think that, and I think that he's right. So,
This is such a minor issue. He may be right, but it's an obfuscation. It's a complete and total distraction. The amount of times where people are like, well, the line delivery was... No, it's usually the writing. It's usually the writing. There's no chemistry between the characters. Usually it comes down to the atmosphere of the game, which is the director and the writers, who usually get the bulk of the issue, as well as the devs. So I think this is a totally irrelevant thing that he's bringing up.
So let me go ahead and make a little let's specify this a little bit more. So when you don't like something in a video game, it's very hard to pinpoint who the person is that is responsible for the thing that you don't like in the video game.
True.
Sometimes it's hard to know who exactly it is. And this has been an opinion that I've had for a long time. And I think an example of me expressing this opinion in the past is with Steve Denuser and World of Warcraft. I said that this guy was getting scapegoated a bit too much because he was probably one person that was on the writing team, and the entire writing team are the ones that are at fault, and he's just the one that's speaking for them. Mm-hmm. So I've actually had this opinion before in the past. But the difference is that when an individual developer is making public statements and they're saying and demonizing groups of people based off of their public statements that are in some cases racist, they are politically motivated or problematic in one way or another, that person receiving feedback and criticism from that person, from the audience, that person receiving feedback is completely fair because they're the ones that are saying it. It's not like the studio is telling them to say that they hate white people. They didn't say that. They decided to do that themselves.
Something else. Indeed, it might not be the line delivery at all. Maybe the problem was the writing. So should you go attack the writer? Well, no, because why was the line written in this way? Was it written this way because the writer...
I think that this guy is actually illustrating a really great point of the reason why people should celebrate a lot of these layoffs, is that every bit of accountability and fault inside of an organization is displaced and diluted down to a point where you don't even know who's actually at fault, who's doing anything wrong. It's nobody's, everything goes wrong and no one's to blame. And this is it's basically like an engineered form of bureaucracy that insulates people from any form of accountability at all. And I think that's where he's at. And I think that he's unknowingly making an argument for why the video game industry is as bloated as it is. How is it not one or two people's fault that one of these things goes wrong?
Had a specific thing they were trying to say? Maybe. Maybe it was written this way because there was incredibly tight time pressures due to other externalities.
All this is obvious. Let's move on.
And all of this isn't to say that you aren't allowed to have your own opinions, to not like the things you don't like. It's specifically to point out that you being angry at a specific person, you attacking a specific person, is often misdirected. If you
true in some cases, not in all cases. There are a lot of the people who get celebrated, and also, like, when you're a game director. So this is the thing, is that if you're a game director and you're a person who is responsible for the leadership of the game, you are getting paid a lot of money. And with that money comes responsibility. Now, it might not always be your fault when something in the game doesn't go well, but it is your responsibility. That's what leadership is. So when a person like this, like, that's how it is. That's the way it goes. So, yes, it is when the game doesn't go well, it's the director's fault. It is. Now, there could be some behind-the-scenes reason why it's not entirely his fault, but if you want to look at somebody, you need to look at, eventually the buck has to stop somewhere up the line. It does. Come on, this doesn't happen in Chinese studios. If someone makes a mistake, then if they find out who it is and they demand a public apology, even dismissal or free work for 3 months. Well, the difference is that a lot of individual developers that receive a lot of negative feedback and negative criticism from players are developers who constantly assert their own political opinions,
right.
And then they try to basically insert those political opinions into their media.
Right.
So, like with Avowed, for example, like it was one specific person talking about putting things into the video game that were disagreeable by a large percentage of people. That's a totally different thing. Trump is live? No, it's not live. It's not live. If it was live, I'd be watching it. It's not live. A guy in Indiana got arrested today for posting death threats to Elon on X. Really? I'd have to find a link to that.
You feel like you're just not getting the satisfaction from yelling at the corporate Twitter channel or yelling at the studio directly. I would say again that you shouldn't be targeting people directly, even the executive producer. But you know what? If you feel the need, the higher up in the organization you go, the more I'm going to say have at her. Mm-hmm. As you get beyond the executive producer and you get up into studio leadership and group leadership and the C-suite and the person in charge of the entire
They're the ones who are accountable.
They share responsibility in the game you don't like being the way that it is.
Yes.
So if you feel the need to yell at them, again, probably don't, but they're big boys and girls.
Why is everybody hung up on Avowed? I think the reason why people are hung up on it is very simple. So this is a big issue that I think a lot of people have. People are very fatigued from video games that are being pushed out by people who express opinions that are disgraceful, problematic, disagreeable, or unlikable. And they feel...
There's another word that I want to add in there. Dishonorable. These are dishonorable people.
I feel like there is a small subset, and I'm one of these people. I feel like there is a small subset of the game development culture that is actively pushing an agenda inside of video games that is reductive, that is annoying, and that I don't think is receptive or respectful of average players. I think these are basically activists that are putting... They're trying to take over media spaces, and they're doing the same thing in television and movies too. Right. They're trying to take over media spaces and use these media spaces as a canvas for them to paint their picture of how the world should be. And I notice this. I think a lot of people notice this, and I think people are tired of it. So the reason why Avowed is something that people are talking about a lot is simply because it's one of the cases of that happening, and a person who is overtly stating what their viewpoint is, and it's exhausting. That it's so obnoxious, and I think that's the real reason why people are mad. The guy's missing the point. No one justifies attacking voice actors. We want directors to get fired, and they rarely are. We don't celebrate people losing their jobs. We're celebrating companies taking L's. Yeah, in some cases that's true.
Most cases.
They should be able to handle it. The reality is, most of those people do not have a social media presence, do not have a way that you can yell at them directly. So a lot of times what I'm telling you is the least senior person you're allowed to yell at is the executive producer. And a lot of times the most senior person you're going to be able to yell at is the executive producer. So once again, the executive producer serves as a lightning rod for all this vitriol. If you feel like you're not being listened to when you complain on Metacritic or you complain on the forums of a studio, or you complain into the social media channels of the publisher or the studio, be aware that this stuff is carefully scrutinized, not just by the social media teams.
What if you get banned? What if you're somebody that goes to the Discord, for example, and you get banned by a community manager who's a fat, disgusting LGBTQ furry. And they gloat about their banning you because they posted furry content and somebody used an emote of throwing up. That's what happened with Helldivers 2. That's not a hypothetical. One of the community managers for that game was a disgusting freak, and they posted their furry content and said, if you are against this, I'm going to ban you. So my point is that in a lot of cases, people who are critical will just get banned. Do they then at that point have a right to complain and criticize? Maybe make a YouTube video, make a thread on Twitter? See, the thing is, no, these game companies are not receptive to feedback. They don't actually listen, because if they did, they wouldn't have these disgustingly ugly women. They wouldn't have LGBTQ in the game. They wouldn't have these activists running out there to make these inane, incompetent, just absolutely disgraceful, dishonorable statements. Like the guy with Avowed, the art director. No, it simply isn't true. These companies don't listen, which is why people take so much satisfaction when ultimately the company lays off the entire studio. Good riddance. That no one was held accountable. Nobody did anything to actually listen to the community. The game is sold poorly. That is the metric by which people can make their voice be heard. And you don't like it. I understand you don't like it. But on this side of the thing, it's the only way we really have to make the point.
Also by the teams themselves. Arguably, in a lot of cases, to too great of a degree. The team is listening, I would say, often too much to what you are yelling about and complaining about.
Then why aren't they changing it?
Yeah.
Then why do they keep adding in things that are weird, and why do they keep enforcing social, political issues that are divisive into the games?
Yeah.
Why do they keep doing it then?
I think the problem is this guy is being disingenuous. I think that a lot of these freaks who actively moderate these forums, I think they delete and ban comments and content that disagrees. And so I think that the only real feedback they get are from people that have been curated, people that are affirming and glazing all of the worst decisions. And honestly, I think a lot of these people on Twitter just block people. I don't think there's any real feedback. I don't think you're getting any actual critique and criticism, because if you did, and then you still put out the woke the garbage, then there's no room for you to be having this sort of statement at all.
Like, that's it. It's not their decision. That's fine.
In these channels. But don't worry, you don't need to go onto their Twitter channel and yell at them directly, because they're going to hear it anyway. Be a human being, have some empathy, and stop being cruel. Stop throwing a party because a bunch of people lost their jobs. Because you don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're mad at. People deserve some grace. People deserve some empathy from you. And if you can't provide that, then stay off the internet completely. One last time for the cheap seats. You are entitled to your opinion. You are entitled to be angry about a game that you bought.
Yeah, sure.
You paid good money for it. But try to remember that it's just a game. Even more importantly, when you are expressing your complaints, stay away from cruelty. Stay away from targeting individual people. Stay away from trying to cause harm. Stay away from celebrating harm done to actual human beings.
I think this is all bullshit. I do. I think it's all bullshit. It absolutely is.
Right.
Being cruel or whatever. The fact is that if you're going to push an agenda in a video game and people don't like the agenda, they don't like the video game. And this is even true, by the way. This is true with, I would say, most topics and most things. We're the fucking customer. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this is just how it's going to be with anything. If you're releasing a video game and you saw the guy sexual harassment someone on Twitch, LSA? No, I didn't see that. I have no idea. Like, I mean, if somebody's sexually harassing somebody else, then they should get banned. It's pretty simple, right? I mean, what are we even talking about? It's not really, there's not really much of a conversation about that. Anyway, so the devs shouldn't go for the woke studios. Well, it's if you're pushing a narrative like this and you have people that are pushing opinions like this that people don't like, then you should expect to have people celebrate when those opinions get deleted. And also, these developers, in a lot of cases, make it personal. They're the ones that are making it personal, not oftentimes the players. And I think that players feel like they're being preached to and they're being talked down to in a lot of cases, and they feel like certain types of game design, like, for example, like the body type 1 and 2 thing, why should a player be okay with that and not celebrate this going away if they don't like it? Because if you don't like something, wouldn't it be a good thing that the thing that you don't like is taking an L? Right. I would say so, yeah. And I think everybody knows that there's obviously going to be like collateral damage where it doesn't always like affect any one person or whatever. But that's it. Pokelaws went after you again, it seems, at LSF. Well, I'm glad he did. That's great. Maybe that'll get more viewers to his channel, and he won't have to keep acting weird. I mean, I honestly, here's really the truth, right? I've said a bunch of stuff about Poke.
Okay. I don't think there's anything left. I think that pretty much covers it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I actually thought that was a really important video for us to go over and watch. I think that Asmongold is precisely correct. But here you have an out-of-touch BioWare exec who doesn't understand the problem, doesn't understand the issue, doesn't understand anything, just wants to put the onus and the blame on you. But here's the reality, and I'll speak directly to Mike, Dara, Mike, Mark, whatever the hell your name is. It's not just that a game is bad. Oh, it's just a game. In many cases, these games are stories. They're stories that are told over a long period of time, and people become invested in them. Oh, sure. Yeah, it's just $70. What's the big deal? You have a bunch of sinister, woke, left-wing, degenerate, subhuman freaks that are pushing their highly toxic, highly unlikable, highly weird, extremist rhetoric into the stories that people have come to love. The response to that is not good. Nobody at the studio is listening. Everyone seems to affirm all of the sort of bad behavior. The inmates are running the asylum. And so, from a gamer's perspective, the product is getting worse and worse and worse. The standards are getting worse and worse and worse. There's no professionalism. There's no quality control. Nothing. And gamers are told, oh, by the way, games are going to get more expensive. $70 isn't good enough anymore. We need more money to produce this slop that we're putting out already. We need more money, and you're too toxic, and you should be quiet and just buy the product and consume the next product, even though it's going to be terrible. And I just did a video comparing Avowed to a 2006 game in Oblivion. And the difference is night and day. Oblivion is so much better that it doesn't even make sense how that's possible. So the games are getting worse. The customer service is getting worse. The attitude of the people working there is getting worse. There is an inferiority problem. These people are inferior who work at these companies. And there's no leadership, there's nobody to hold them accountable. How on earth are you satisfied with a game like Avowed coming out, or a game like Dragon Age the Veilguard, which was an abomination? No, you should feel bad, but you don't. None of you feel bad. None of you feel embarrassed about that game. A Dragon Age game, which pretty much prints money. A Dragon Age game. The last Dragon Age game sold, what, 12 million? And then all these years later, like, you know, you're talking like over 10 years later, game comes out, doesn't even sell 2 million. Or if it does, it's just barely over. Like, the number they used for Dragon Age the Veilguard was 1.5 million, like, viewers. It was almost like a made-up number. You have no right to lecture gamers about anything. If anything, gamers have not been cruel enough. They haven't been, well, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but they've been too lenient, too tolerant, too accepting of all of this shit. They've been too comfortable with the terrible decisions and the terrible people that have been allowed to fester within the gaming press and within the gaming industry. Now, you may not like the sound of that, but it is absolutely undeniably true. And the sooner that you get with the program, the sooner that you realize that people aren't buying your leftist, woke, propagandistic bullshit, the sooner that you get back to work and put your nose to the grindstone and start focusing on attention to detail that actually matters, like in Oblivion, the fact that you can knock an entire table over, but in Avowed, the tables are just they're just stagnant assets. If you don't understand what the problem is, then you're not paying attention. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this video went long. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you supporting the channel, and I'll see you next time.